how heavy are you now?
I'm 193 right now. So
Oh, wow. That's
yeah.
pretty big for you, right?
Yeah, I've been bulking since December, no
Yeah.
MainGaining to get these muscle gains.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And Jeff, you're always, first I'll ask Alex, is that an all-time high for you, 193?
No, I've been a little bit heavier.
Okay. What's the heaviest you've been?
Oh, well, if we're talking about a maximum bloated state, I once woke up at 200, but that's
Okay.
not actual fat. So
Sure.
realistically, hover around 195, but that was a few weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're 5'6"?
Yeah, 5'5.5", 5'6", whatever.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a lot for that height.
Thank you, man.
And Jeff, you're 220-ish?
Yeah, like 218 to 220. I've just been sort of hovering around 218 to 220.
Okay.
Just MainGaining along and recomping and
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that I've mentioned before, the heaviest I've been was 220, and it was definitely, I hadn't been home in a long time. And so when I came home, it was definitely like, oh, damn, like you've gotten a lot heavier and plenty of fat for sure. This is not like a shredded 220 by any means. But I mentioned, we'll talk about the big genetics video I made recently, but one of the things that I've said is I'm not a big fan of MainGaining or gaintaining, whatever you want to call it. Not to say that it's not worth doing at an advanced stage. I more just mean I see so many, especially, I mean, ridiculous, I think, for beginners, but even intermediates where they're like, okay, I'm going to stay at this weight for so long, and they just dramatically slow their process. And the example I had given was that I was probably 15 pounds less muscular at the time. And I tried that approach for months and months, and I literally didn't go anywhere. And obviously I wasn't maxed out, right? I just think, and it's like somebody could say, well, how do you explain that physiologically? Or like, why would you need to hold on to the muscle longer? And I don't have a great explanation for why, but it just seems to be that the longer you hold on to it and the more you push things, the more progress you're going to make, within reasonable realms.
Yeah. It's, I think the body just senses energy availability pretty well, and it's just interested in survival. And so if you're like, even just transitionally in this sort of deficit state, it can sense that really, really well. And, I think MainGaining can work if you're like 20% or so.
Right.
But yeah, like 14, 15%, because most people don't realize how lean 14% is. It's actually pretty lean, right? Like people think I'm 14%. No, I'm like 19% or so.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, but like you have a biceps vein or something like that. And like their idea of what leanness is like 5, 6, 7% off in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And I think that, there's going to be some studies that come out, but I think just looking at old school bodybuilders, they bulked, and all of them bulked. Like none of them were maintaining like a lean look year round, and certainly not like today's social media standards.
Mm.
And so I think there are definitely some clues as to what those guys did. And almost all of them, they described it like a softening kind of state to where they would purposefully gain weight, not just purposefully gain muscle, they would gain weight, overall weight. And a lot of them were pretty aggressive with it too. Because, I mean, relatively speaking, fat loss is just easier and faster compared to muscle growth. So I think it just makes the most sense to try to optimize, there's that word, right? Optimize muscle growth when you can, and just accept a little bit of fat gain, or even like a visible amount of fat gain, and then just cut it off later. So, spend 70, 80% of the time in not an aggressive surplus, be reasonable with it, but like a noticeable and progressive surplus where you're pushing your body weight up. I think that is going to work better for pretty much everyone. And I see guys who are, man, they just have it bad from social media, and they're just trying to maintain a look where they will never, ever get the amount of muscle that they need to actually have the look that they want, because they want the leanness all the freaking time.
Yeah,
many times those people become content creators in the sense that they're not improving their own physique, but they're making extravagant videos where they look good, so it's informative and it's a nice display, but in terms of making gains, nothing's going on, and it'll often last for years until they go through a bulk, and next thing you know, this long-term plateau was obliterated. And the way I see it, all the best natties from the bronze and silver era to now have all gone through bulks. And what always amazes me is when some of them hit a super elite level of muscle mass and strength, and then they stop bulking and cutting, and then they tell their audience to do the same thing, that, oh, I could have gotten to the same spot had I not bulked. And I look at that like, you're contradicting yourself. That's like me saying I didn't benefit from bear mode. Of course I did. And like Jeff said, most people are many points off in terms of estimating their own body fat percentage. People say 20 are about 25. 12%, you're probably around 16. You know, this obsession with leanness, I see it all the time in my comment section. And sometimes people will post a routine and I'm looking at it and I have to question, why are you not making gains? And then I see their diet right after. That's the problem. Yeah. And if people just did that, you know, sometimes the advice can be train hard and eat like a madman. A lot of these problems would go away. And people understood that back in the day. Now the newer generation just wants to be shredded all the time. It doesn't help with all these SARMs goblins and people showcasing a shredded physique year round.